at the Democratic convention in that year, a guy sought the Democratic presidential nomination. His name was William Gibbs McAdoo, and he was a son-in-law of Woodrow Wilson, and he almost got it. And he was the pro-Klan candidate at that time. The Klan in the 20s had, I think, 2 million members. It was a huge organization. The guy, we're not talking about Tom Metzger winning a congressional nomination in the Democratic Party, which he did in 1980. This was a guy who came this close to getting the Democratic presidential nomination, and he was the, if not the pro-Klan candidate, he was the anti-Klan candidate. And for that to be a comparable thing today, you'd be talking about Tom Metzger debating Tom Harkin and Clinton and Wilder.
So the threat is not as serious.
Well, not as serious as
about David Duke here also.
or 70 years ago.
I disagree at that period you're talking about. We have a screwed up country. I agree with you. We've got racism, we've got homophobia, we have anti-Semitism, we have sexism. We've got a lot of isms out there. And I think it's a threat. I think that if it's 4,500 or 25,000, it's a threat. And what we have to do is develop some comprehensive plans, because there is an absence of leadership, because people don't want to confront the bigots all across the board. And what history teaches us is that if you're silent and you don't have comprehensive plans confronting the bigots, they take that silence and inaction as a signal of approval or condoning their activity, and they get bolder because they're bullies, but they're cowards in certain ways. And that kind of climate where we don't come after them and confront them and try to change the climate just makes them bolder.
I think there's an absence of leadership on these issues at the top, and a complete absence of leadership. And that leads to a vacuum. And into that vacuum steps Tom Metzger, steps the Klan, and deals with these young people who, as Dan said earlier, really don't have a future. They don't have a future. They can't integrate themselves into the society at large because they don't have an education. They have no future here. So they need a leader figure, someone to look up to, someone to explain to them why they're in their situation, and then someone to blame for their situation.
There is one dimension to this I'd like to add, and that is, in that song, it was noted that he got pleasure out of it. I think pleasure is a term that should be taken a little bit seriously here. In terms of what happens inside a person when they think of themselves and imagine themselves as being dominant, join a large, powerful group, that they get control over other people, that elevates them above other people. That when we think about hatred, we don't think about getting pleasure out of hating, but that's what they said they got out of it.
We have to move on in the discussion. There's more of the trial. So when we return after this short PBS break, we'll hear John Metzger cross-examine the convicted murderer and hear Metzger attempt to disprove Morris Dees' case.
This is PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service.
Taken in
Did John Metzger ever tell you to hurt or cause violence to anyone, written or oral or otherwise?
No.
Did John Metzger teach you violence at all?
No, he didn't.
Did you ever see John Metzger personally before November 13th, the night of the death of Sarah?
No, I didn't.
When was the first time you did see John Metzger?
On Geraldo.
Before the night of the fight and the death, what was the contact that you had with John Metzger, in the sense that, did you write a letter to John Metzger, or did he write a letter to you?
I believe he wrote a letter to me.
Did you have any more contact after that? In the sense of before the fight?
No, I didn't.
So John Metzger never wrote you another letter?
No, he didn't.
Did John Metzger ever call, say, a house you were staying at and say, "Can I talk to Ken Miskey"?
No.
What was your answer?
No.
Did John Metzger ever tell you to buy baseball bats?
No, I didn't.
In that one letter you stated that I did write you, did John Metzger tell you to buy anything or to act in a certain way?
He didn't tell me to buy anything. He told me to, if I just got done reading the letter that Morris gave me yesterday, it states that to keep our mouths shut in any case of any events that happen. That's it.
Did it seem like the letter to you, since it was the first letter and the only letter written to you by John Metzger, did it seem like an introductory letter?
Kinda. I like more like a correspondence letter.
When you scanned or just briefly read in some sections, if you did you feel that the papers were inciting you and encouraging you to go out and just attack randomly people?
No. If that was the case, I've watched so many horror movies. You know, why wouldn't I dress up like Jason and go out and start sawing people up with a chainsaw? No, it's not true at all.
Walter Hatch, a reporter for the Seattle Times, interviewed John Metzger just 3 weeks after the death of Sorrell. He describes that interview in a deposition videotaped in Seattle.
I think the story makes this clear that what he told me was that they had a member of their organization, a Mr. Dave Mazzella, who had gone to Portland to organize skinheads.
Did you ask him what, if any, title or position did Dave Mazzella have in his organization?
Yes.
And what did he say?
Vice President.
And finally, Mr. Hatch, did Mr. Metzger have an occasion to tell you his opinion on skinheads?
We were talking about skinheads, and he said that skinheads these days are deadlier than the skinheads of 2 years ago. They're more disciplined, more kosher, if you will.
And are you reading a direct quote that you quoted him from that interview?
That's right.
John Metzger, who joined the Klan at the age of 8, now heads the youth division of war.
Mr. Metzger, say this murder happened on the November the 12th. For the 2 years prior to November 12th, what role, if any, did you play in working with skinheads in the United States? In whatever capacity you had with war youth, or whatever.
Well, in particular to my position with the role of skinheads was they were a certain segment of white youth that had come to us that were interested, and they always came after us. I didn't go hunting them down, and they just came and they wanted to work with us, or they wanted an alternative opinion to some of the other groups on campus. They wanted an alternate, a different opinion of on race, things of that such. So they got in touch with me, and often I wrote back, generally once, and then a lot of times I never hear from them again.
Well, you kind of pat yourself on the back a little bit for organizing them, don't you?
I do.
In fact, on June 13th, 1988, did you not tell Catherine Bishop of the New York Times that we've been working with them, skinheads, for 2 years? I pat myself on the back a little bit for organizing them. We've been able to influence them and fine-tune their perceptions. Did you say that?
Yes, I did say that.
And did you also say we are filling a void in their lives?
Yes, I said that because here again they felt that there was a void. They would, in particular, since you're talking about skinheads, particularly that group, throwaway white youths would get in touch, and they felt that I do feel I was filling a void. A lot of their perspectives of the world, I think, they needed change and suggestions and opinions.
But did you ever give interviews where you discussed with white youth, skinheads, Aryan youth, any subjects that might assist them in becoming more deadly?
Here again, you're using this word deadlier in a certain category, and I've repeatedly told you what I meant by deadlier, getting their act together.
Well, it's your word, and I just want you to tell the jury what you may have told those skinheads over that 2-year period that we're talking about here that made them more deadly and fine-tuning their perceptions.
Okay, one fact was, like Mr. Mazzella said, was I enlightened them and others on their rights with the police. So now they're more deadlier because the police can't pick on them anymore, and if they ask for a photograph, they could just deny it instead of thinking they have to give it. They're more deadlier in the sense that they got a reputation that, you know, when they're attacked, they're going to fight back in self-defense, and that a lot of them are throwaway kids that are pretty intense, and they're going to hurt them, you know, in self-defense. And a lot of gangs backed off of them. So a lot of people, after a while, understood what the skinhead scene was.
Well, you use the word self-defense. Is this something that you work with skinheads on, as teaching them about self-defense?
Not whatsoever.
You did not?
Well, self-defense in the sense of showing them techniques to defend yourself, no. I've never really myself done much research on anything like that.
Isn't one of the devices that you and your father teach is that if somebody is provoked into attacking you or attacks you in some way, that you should go 10 times further, destroy them, just whatever it takes to get rid of them, poke their eyeballs out. You ever tell them that?
Well, I think that any legitimate person in the world, if they're attacked for no reason at all, especially in our case because we were racial and we had our own thoughts, or at least we thought we had the right to think them at the time, that sure, when someone attacks you, make sure they don't come at you again. That's covered by the California Penal Code or any other code within the United States, self-defense.
Let's get down to the bottom, and I want to ask you if you stated this to this person. The interviewer. They are saying if someone attacks white youth in general, first, that we have every obligation and every right to attack back with everything we've got. And was this your answer?
Yes, that's...
Let me read it, and then you tell me if this is your answer. Not every right, not only every right, every obligation, but you can go 10 times further. We are like our forefathers, our ancestors. We are like Viking berserkers. If someone attacks you, they're trying to kill you, and they're trying to hurt you, everything you believe in, and when you're doing right or when you're not doing anything and someone attacks you, go for it. Go for gusto. Destroy them. Anything you have to do. Poke the eyeballs out. Beat the hell out of them. Who cares what you have to do? Defeat. I'd rather be tried by 12 than carried by 6. Now, did you put that out over that line?
Yes, that was in a, the question was asked, and that is covered by the California Penal Code.
Well, did you tell Walter Hatch, if they went in a baseball bat and whomping on them, obviously that's not right, but if they were defending themselves, there was nothing wrong with that. Did you say that?
What had happened was...
Well, just did you say that first?
Well, first of all, let me clear that up. That was...
Well, you have to acknowledge whether or not you made the statement.
Okay,
then you can clarify it if you desire.
Okay, yes, I did say that. Yes, it's in quotes. I did say that. They were talking, from what I recall, of course, with this article, Walter Hatch was talking to me about the incident up here, up here in Portland, and he wanted my opinion, and I said, quote, I know one thing. I don't dare listen to the media to get an accurate picture of what happened if they, meaning Ken Miskey, Kyle Brewster, and the others, went in there with a baseball bat whomping on people. Obviously, that's not right. But if they're defending themselves, then there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a very accurate.
Did you understand that this man was beaten over the head 3 times with a baseball bat and he was unarmed? Did you understand that?
At that time, I had gotten quite a bit of calls from the news media wanting my opinion, and I don't base, like some people may do, or you, but I don't base my opinion on what the facts are in the newspaper, because similar to this case, most of them are a big joke and totally twisted.
Well, let's look at this particular thing here. It talks about a new phenomenon across America. Can you tell me, it says it's called bashing, a sport in which hunting parties of white youth seek out non-white individuals and break their bones. Now, were you aware that this was in the education material that Mr. Mazzella was using to teach with?
Sure. Greg Withrow, when he put that out, I didn't know exactly if that was happening or not. I've never been involved in anything like that. I didn't believe in. See, I don't necessarily... See, I may be against something, but I'm not going to be like some people do in the world and prohibit freedom of speech.
Now, in this issue of the Aryan Youth paper that you wrote and admit distributing...
Yes.
It says, white man's civilization has been declining for many years, but through the turbulent and bloody horrors that came, white man's natural instincts to survive reappeared. Violence, along with intelligence and unity, was soon the white man's only avenue of escape from the cesspool